is Susan K. Quinn, and I'm a speculative fiction author, and today I'm going to talk to you about 10 ways to survive indie publishing. I've published several indie works, starting with my Mindjack series, which is young adult science fiction. I also have Debt Collector, which is adult future noir, a steampunk book, and a kids book. And in addition to doing all of these in ebook and print, I've also worked on a live-action, professionally made trailer for my Mindjack series. I've worked on audiobooks, and my Debt Collector is actually a serial format. So I've done a wide range of indie works, but today I'm going to talk to you about my indie author survival guide. This guide I put together that in order to collect all of my experiences and share them with my friends to hopefully help you in your own indie publishing career. So let's get started. I chose this rather forbidding landscape, not only for the cover of my book, but also for this presentation, because I think indie publishing can be daunting to people sometimes. It seems like a challenge to master all the different aspects of publishing, and I think sometimes our fears and our concerns that we don't know enough about the process get in the way. And so the author guide is a little bit about a how-to. It's a little bit about conquering those fears, and it hopefully maps out the whole process for you. Now, I can't possibly cover everything in the book because the book has a lot of really detailed information that you'll need when you dig into the nuts and bolts of actually doing indie publishing. So what I've done for this presentation is pulled out the 10 key ideas that I would like to get across that are also in the book. But if you really want to understand each of these ideas in depth, it would help to actually read the book, which is an ebook or print, but it's also on my website because I blogged the book as I went. So it's readily accessible to just about everyone, I hope. At least that's my intention. So let's get started. The first step, I think, is to think long term, and that might seem like a contradiction to indie publishing because indie publishing is fast, it's easy, it's press a button and your book is live. There's a very strong focus on going fast in indie publishing, and I think for your sanity and for the overall health of your career, I think it's very important to keep a long-term perspective, and I think there's two ways that can help to do that. One is to make a mission statement, and the other is to develop a 5-year plan. So let's dive into that a little bit. A mission statement is just what you think it is. It's a few words, maybe a paragraph, that describe why you're in this. I know there's a reason why you chose to be a writer rather than, say, an accountant, or in my case, an engineer. I have a PhD in engineering, and I left that work a while ago to raise my kids, but I always assumed I would go back to it. And so for me to turn into a speculative fiction author was quite a change. And having a mission statement of why I was actually in this and wanted to make a career out of it helped me to have a compass, sort of a direction that I was heading. And I think when you dive into indie publishing, you face a lot of decisions that you have to make along the way. And having that compass, that sort of set of guiding values or core principles, will really help you as you negotiate those decisions. So let's look at the 5-year plan. I love how this guy is looking ahead. That is the idea of what I would like you to do. The 5-year plan acts as a map. The compass, your mission statement, gives you sort of the direction that you want to go, the kind of writer life that you want to have. The map is how to get there. You don't know the terrain, you don't know the pitfalls, but the map can give you some guidance. And so as you make a plan, put in details. Like my original plan, my first 5-year plan, which I made before I ever indie published my first book, was what were my objectives. I had financial objectives and I had creative objectives. My financial objectives were actually to replace the salary that would come from a part-time engineering job. I figured that if I could do that, then I wouldn't have to go back to work or feel like I needed to be working in order to making the money that would support writing full-time, which is what I really wanted to do. At the same time, I had some creative goals of what kind of writer I wanted to be. And originally those goals were focused on children's fiction, but I've since grown, and I think your goals will change over time. But having a map in the first place really helps you get started, and it helps you keep that long-term perspective, which once again, once you've published a book and you've got sales are coming in, hopefully, and you're watching that ranking going up and down and up and down, it really helps to have a long-term plan to keep you out of the crazy part of that. All right, so you've decided that you're going to do this indie publishing thing. The first thing I want to caution you against is not to get eaten by sharks. By sharks, what I mean are vanity publishers. And that used to be that you could kind of spot vanity publishers. They went by a few names like Author Solutions. But then everybody started getting into the indie publishing game. And now, not only is there Author House or iUniverse, sort of the big vanity publishers of the past, but now you have things like Abbott Press, who is owned by Writer's Digest, Archway, who's owned by Simon & Schuster. And you might think that if you're going under the umbrella of a large company, a large publisher like Simon & Schuster, that somehow that's better, but it's not. These are still vanity publishers, and I really want to warn you away from them. They will not only usually give you an inferior product, but they also eat up all your sales and or your royalties. And I don't want that to happen because I want you to be successful as an indie publisher. So how do you make that happen? Well, talk to your friends, use this guide, find the resources out there to find the freelance people who will help you, the copywriters, the editors, the cover designers. There's all kinds of people out there who do great work and really can help you and support you and be your team as you're indie publishing, and you need those people. But ask for recommendations. Find out if they get the thumbs up or thumbs down from people. Because reputation is very important, and it will steer you away from these vanity publisher kinds of situations. All right, so successfully you've avoided the sharks. Now you need to hunt down the other thing that can really snarl you up, which is your fears. They could be creative fears, financial fears, career fears. I found that fear is a universal thing for writers. I think it starts with our work. To begin with, we're afraid to share our work, and then we're afraid to publish our work because of what people will think of it. And the best advice I have for that, and I talk a lot about fear in the book. I have a lot of personal essays about my struggles with fear. So I feel like I know very well the fears that you may be worried about right now. And for me, the best thing to tackle my fears has always been creative action. I have this picture here of my corkboard and my notes and my books. This is a particular project that I'm actually working on right now. But when this picture was taken, I was in the very beginning stages of researching it. And I was terrified because it was huge. It was a multi-book project. I'd never done anything that large before. It was a very difficult science fiction topic. And I thought, who am I to think that I can actually do this? And what I did is I went and I just dug in. And I think that action in the face of fear is usually what kills it. Fear is all about what could happen, all the bad things in the future. But when you take creative action, creativity has a way of being very affirming in the first place. And so I think that has a very natural antidote to the fearful part of this process. Then there's the fear that you're going to be the only one doing this crazy indie publishing thing. I think when I first started a couple years ago with indie publishing, this was fairly true. It was unusual for people to strike out and do self-publishing. Lucky for you, now self-publishing has gone pretty mainstream. The stigma is fading. And you're really not that fish out of water anymore. There's a huge indie community, and I would definitely encourage you to seek them out. And then finally, there's the idea of just taking a different path. doing something different. You know, there's this well-worn path of getting an agent, getting an editor, being published by a large house. That is a pretty standard thing and has been for 100 years. In fact, it was the only game in town for 100 years. And so now, with this indie publishing being something new, it's sometimes difficult to take the idea that you're going to be going down that weedy path. And I would encourage you to think of it in terms of taking risks with your writing, and where you would not necessarily hesitate to go off into something new with your writing. Similarly with your publishing. In fact, one of the best parts of indie publishing is the ability to take that weedy path and to trudge where no one has trudged before. So it's very exciting if you're willing to beat down your fears enough to be able to head off into the forest. You'll find some amazing cool stuff going on in the indie world right now. Alright, so we've tackled our fears, and you're getting ready to publish that book. Fantastic. Once you're done with the book, you really need to start thinking like a reader and not a writer anymore. And I see this snarling up writers a lot. They think of themselves as writers. They think of their lovely work that they have done. They're in love with it, which they absolutely should be. But then it's hard to flip it around and think like a reader and what will attract people to that. One of the most important things I think you need to do is package your work well. That means getting a good cover. I've put my covers up here because I get a lot of compliments on my covers, and I put a lot of work into my covers, designing them to really evoke a response in readers so that they want to pick it up. It's not just about being pretty, it's about communicating an idea. And I talk a lot in the book about how to actually do that, how to design a cover that makes people want to pick it up. So once you've got a good package or a good cover, that's sort of your hook, okay, for the reader. You want to have a pretty cover, you want to have a good blurb, you want to have a good price. This is the whole package where it attracts readers and hooks them in. Then you need to put the lines out to lots of different readers. Something I say a lot on my blog is don't just fish in your own backyard. A lot of people want to keep catching more fish, but they only fish in the one small pond that they know, which is their small social media group. Don't do that. Those people already know what you're doing most of the time. You can kind of let them know, but absolutely don't like hammer them. That's not the idea. You want to be going out to new ponds and fishing in new areas all the time. And then finally the sinker. This sort of hook, line, and sinker is how to grow your fan base. You've hooked them in, you've got lots of lines out there bringing in new readers. The sinker is the book itself, and this is what people mean when they say, write the best book that you can. Because the sinker is having a reader get to the end of your book and say, wow, I love that book. I am going to share that book with all of my friends. Having that kind of reader response, delivering an experience that deserves that response, is what writing a great book is all about. If you can do that, then you complete the cycle. They will go and they will show your book to other people. They will be hooked, and so on and so on. That is how you really grow a reader, or a reader base, a fan base. And you can only do these things when you're thinking like a reader and not so much like a writer. All right, let's back up a little bit and look at where we're at. We're about halfway through. But we're really only on step 4 out of 10, and as you'll see, we haven't even started to climb the mountain yet. We're still out on the plains because this is all the prep work, all the things you have to fight through just to get started to launch that book. Once you actually publish is when the survival part actually kicks in. I think writers get overwhelmed, it's a lot of work, they feel like they're marketing all the time. And so these last points are about how to survive that process, continue to grow as a writer, and actually carry on. So one of the first things you have to do is watch out for quicksand. Social media will eat you up, and it's very easy to get sunk into the quicksand of social media. I am the first person in the world to be guilty of this. I am on social media a lot. I enjoy social media, I have fun with it, and it can really suck up all your time. So you have to be disciplined, you have to be continuing to write, And I've talked in the book about strategies of how to keep that discipline, how to track your work, how to be writing every day, and some techniques that you can use to make sure you don't get stuck in this quicksand. The next thing that I think is important is to love your fans. And I think that might be obvious. Of course, you're going to want to love your fans, but you can also spend all of your time loving your fans. You need to be available to them, absolutely. You don't necessarily have to spend an inordinate amount of time doing that. So one way that I think is really essential to communicating and keeping in touch with your fans is a mailing list. So let's dive into that a little bit. Mailing lists are good for new releases, giveaways, and exclusive cool stuff just for the people who signed up for your mailing list. So if a reader reads your work and they get to the end of it, I always have a link at the end of my books right when they finish my work and they're excited about it, hopefully. There's a link there to sign up for my mailing list. The people who do that are your very best fans. Those are your very best readers. You want to treat them well. You don't want to spam them. You don't want to send them tons of emails, but you definitely want to let them know when there's new releases, when there's special giveaway stuff, and do giveaways. I do giveaways all the time that are exclusive to my readers, my mailing list readers. Just this last week, I gave out a new short story that was just for my newsletter list. And the book isn't even released yet, but it's a novella that comes after the Mind Jack trilogy, and or as part of the Mind Jack trilogy. And so it was sort of a bonus story for people who had been on the mailing list and following me all along and supporting me. It's something I can give back to them. So I think if you love your fans, they will love you. And that sort of relationship is how you start. And I don't care if you only have 3 fans on your mailing list to begin with, start there and grow. Because as your books get out there, slowly but surely, that list will grow, and it might be even faster than you think. All right, while you're doing all this great work, you're loving your fans, you're staying out of the social media, but you're being accessible, don't forget to innovate. Innovation is one of the greatest things about being indie published. I talk about the cauldron of innovation. Indie publishers are making trends, they're making mistakes, they're taking risks, they're doing all of these things because they can, because there's an internet freedom that comes with indie publishing. One example that I did of innovation was actually my debt collector serial. Serials, when I wrote this one a year ago, were not as big as maybe they are now. It was still something sort of fresh and new, but I wanted to try it. I had never written a serial before. I found out quickly that I loved it. It was great fun, very challenging writing, so it was really boosting my creativity a lot, which was fantastic. Didn't sell very well at first, and I quickly found out that serials are more difficult to sell than novels. Novels are much easier. But in spite of that, I loved it so much. You can see this is season 1. I have several more seasons planned, and I enjoy the creativity part of it. Now, I say it didn't sell, very much in the beginning. It took a while, and now it's actually doing quite well. So that idea of having to try something out and maybe not give up on it right away is also a big piece of being indie published. Something else that I took a risk on was getting a translator for one of my books, Open Minds. This is coming out this month, and it's going to be translated into German. And I was taking a bit of a risk. I had to pay some money up front, but I actually have a very innovative contract with my translator in that he is working on a revenue share. He gets some money up front, and then he gets a piece of the book revenues as time goes on. And so it's a bit of a risk for him as well. But what that means is that he is actually a partner with the book now, and is incentivized to help me in that German market and get into the German market and really promote the book. So it's a fantastically new thing and very innovative. There's not a lot of this going on right now, but I think it's one way for indies to sort of get into different areas and do things that traditionally would be the province of a traditional publisher, and yet indies are doing it. Now, will this risk pay off? I don't know. Ask me in a year what the sales are, and I'll let you know. But I'm confident at this point that it was definitely worth the try, and I think that's what a lot of indie publishing about, is making sure that you give it a good go. All right, write, publish, market. I put those, this has its own circle because I think sometimes we get those out of order. I put those in that order because that's the order of importance, that's the order of the amount of time you should be spending on each, and it's the right order to look at it. You should always be spending most of your time writing. Writing is the most important thing you could do. Creating that backlist, that intellectual property, is what your whole business is about. It's what your whole career is about, creating a body of works. So most of your time should be spent on writing, even after you publish. And that is very difficult because the publishing and the marketing tends to crowd in pretty quickly. And so again, this goes back to discipline about making sure you've got things in the right order. Once you're done writing, I would encourage you to publish and not wait. Sometimes people put off and put off and put off, especially that first book. I think there's such a big leap in getting the first book out there that actually publishing the book can be a challenge. So I encourage you to do the best you can with writing it, with copy editing it, all of those things that you want to make it look great, but get it out in the marketplace, because the best thing you can do with your book in terms of marketing is just actually to have it available so people can find it and buy it if they wish. And the marketing is sort of an ongoing thing. You have to spend time on it. You don't have to spend an inordinate amount of time on it. It's not required that you spend all your time marketing. In fact, I put it as number 3 because I think it is the least important of those. I talk a lot on my blog about making the donuts. The donuts are the writing part. It's the part that only you can do. Other people can help you publish, other people can help you market. You're the only one who can write those words. So make sure you do that every day. And then you can worry about how to get it out into the world. All right, writing about our book. This is something that, even though as you're writing and doing that as your first thing, I want to make sure that you're always writing a better book. And there's sort of this contrast, or this tension between writing better or writing faster. And I think that's a false dichotomy. And this video that Ira Glass has, I really enjoy, because he talks about doing a huge volume of work. And the reason why he says that is because as you write more, you will write better. And not only that, you will develop your herd of turtles. Now, herd of turtles is a phrase I use to describe all those books that you're sort of building your backlist, your body of work. Those are your herd of turtles. And as they're going along, the more turtles you have, the better or closer you're going to get to actually being able to write full-time and making a living at your work. And that's because it's a lot easier to sell 10 copies of 10 novels than 100 copies of one novel. So if you've got the 10 novels out there, you're going to do better. So focus on creating the work. Focus on getting the work out there. At the same time, you want to be having each work, be a better work. And I do things like creative work retreats, workshops. Right now I'm taking a screenwriting class that meets once a month for 9 months. And all of those are ways that I keep striving to better my craft. And that's another way you're more likely to get more readers, is to strive to write a better book. Finally, burn bright and be patient. I like these catchwords because they help describe how I think the focus that we should keep, that sort of long-term focus. Burn bright says, write the best book that you can, write the book that you love. Open Minds was the book that I loved when I was writing it, which is actually true for every book as I'm writing it, but I love that book. And when I published it, I actually wrote 2 more. So I loved it enough to turn it into a trilogy. Those books are selling very well now, but that was not true in the beginning. So let's look at the process there, because patience is a huge part of this. In the first month, I broke even on the book, which was fantastic because I kept my expenses low as I could, and breaking even was my objective, and I did that in the first month. It took me 3 months to break 1,000 sales. It took me 8 months to reach 1,000 sales per month. 1,000 sales per month is that criteria I use for saying you've reached a level where you're starting to break out with that book. You're starting to have enough sales that you could potentially support yourself or have a reasonable income. It took me 12 months, 2 novels, and 3 novellas, and I am currently making a living off of these works, by which I define as making more than the average income in my state. Now, 12 months might sound like a really long time, or it might sound like an extremely short time. I think 12 months is a long time to wait for a book to be successful. During that time, you're just being patient feels like it's taking forever. On the other hand, going from 0 to 12 months and making a living off of your written works is incredibly fast, and it's part of this indie revolution that I just really, really love. And I'm not the only one. There are many writers who are doing exactly what I've done. Meanwhile, I've been writing, Debt Collector, more works. I haven't been sitting back and just letting those works earn money for me. I've been actually writing more works. And this is part of making those donuts, being patient. These works, 2 of these works just came out in the last month. The other 2 came out in the last 6 months. And, you know, they're not going to be overnight successes. The first one took 8 months before it took off. So even now, even as I'm successful, I still have to be patient. And I try to focus on the 80-20 rule. I'm sure you've heard of it, where 80% of the time you're working on stuff that gives you 20% of the payback. I try to trim that down, so I'm always doing things that will pay off. All right, so 10 ways to survive indie publishing. These are sort of 10 key ideas. There is a lot more information in the book. There's a lot of detail in the book, everything from formatting to inspirational essays about fear, all kinds of stuff in there. So I hope you'll be inspired to take a look at that in more detail. Again, ebook, print, also on my blog. I put this guide together because I want to help people. I want them to find their dreams and have, if they want to work or if they want to be a writer full-time, to find a way to do that. And indie publishing, for the first time in forever for writers, is giving us the opportunity to make that kind of change in our lives. And I'll leave you with a quote from Louis C.K. about patience. He says, "Young musicians believe they should be able to throw a band together and be famous, and anything that's in their way is unfair and evil. What are you, in your 20s? You picked up a guitar? Give it a minute." That idea that you need to give it a minute to be patient is huge in indie publishing. Even though it feels go, go, go all the time, you really need to think long term, have a plan, and be patient and keep working, keep writing. I hope this has been helpful to you, and I love to hear from readers. If you want to contact me, my blog or my website is www.susankquinn.com, and I would love to hear from you. Thanks very much.